Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
I'm watching your YouTubes on wide throw hinges. I've had to become more knowledgeable about them. We've got a little issue with an entry door. I'm a general contractor. I don't know if my pictures have come through yet. If you want, let me know when the pictures come through, and you can call me, and maybe you can walk me through what hinge I would need here so I can place the order with you.
Yeah, no, I've got them in front of me.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, it's odd because it's not just a wide throw hinge that I need because we've got an issue on the inside with casing and a deeper jamb, but also it's an arched door. I don't know if that makes it any more difficult or not, but the top of the door is radius. My door thickness is 2 1/4. From the door stop, we're coming back 1/4 of an inch for my weather stripping, and then I think they said to leave 1/4 inch back on a 2 1/4 inch door, and then that's where the hinge starts. So based on that and the picture I'm sending you, what size of a wide throw hinge do you think I need? I don't care if the door doesn't open, 180. If it opens even like 140, I'm okay with it because the room is on a radius. So it's not like the door can open 180 anyways. And I'll send you a better picture to put that in perspective for you.
What are you going to do? So I'm looking at your images. You've obviously got these mortised for Tectus or something like that. So
yeah, I got to fill those back in. We made a mistake.
Okay. yeah. Stan, let's take a look here. So let's run the formula. You've got a 2 1/4 inch thick door. Let's assume that you're going to have a 1/4 inch back set. What is the...
Let me grab a pencil. I'm going to run through it with you as well. Okay, we got a 2 1/4 inch door, correct?
You got a 1/4 inch back set.
For the
you don't have to
correct?
run through it. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
You don't have to write this down if you don't want to. So I see where you're holding that piece of trim, and it looks like the tape measure is at 6 inch.
Exactly.
What's the tape measure when it hits the face of the frame? Is it 2 3/4 or?
You mean from the face of the frame to that 6 inches?
To the yeah, that's 3 1/4 from the face of the casing to the face of the frame. You would agree with that?
Yeah, that's
okay.
about right.
So the one dimension that I don't have is what is the reveal of the jamb? How much room, when you look at the opening in elevation, what's the dimension from the rabbet to the wall, the white drywall or whatever is there, stucco?
Half an inch. It's a half an inch.
Okay, so that'll be fine.
That's going from the face of the wood to the face of the white part. Yeah, it's half an inch.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you have room for the barrel of the hinge. So when we run the formula, the size is 8 inch width. Now that's larger than technically needed by the math, but they're well, you could use a 7 inch. But it would be nice to go to 180.
But I can't open to 180 again because the door is in a rotunda, so it can only really open like 90. It can maybe open like 120.
Yeah,
I'm okay with 122. I don't want this hinge sticking out, too much.
Yeah, forgive me. I can see that you can't go nearly to 180 because it's an arched header. That's the
Oh yeah, that's another issue. Correct.
Yeah, you'll get to a point it may give you a problem.
Correct. It starts hitting. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could do a 7 inch wide hinge, and 7 inch.
And can we do like a 5x7 so it's heavy duty because this is a heavy door and.
No, you can do 4.5 by 7 or 5 by 8.
Okay, so we'll do 4.5 by 7.
Yeah. So I stock a 4.5 by 7 in satin brass or in a prime coat finish.
Okay, we'll do prime. I got to paint them black.
Oh, great.
And then is that enough for this door? 3 hinges is enough for this heavy door? It's an oak door.
How heavy is the door?
I don't. Renee, look at how heavy do you think the door is? Like 300 pounds?
Oh my God. No, hinges are all wrong if that door is 300 pounds.
200? Maybe. Hold on. They're gonna list it right now and get an idea. Hold on. Yeah. 200? Okay, hold on a second. With me, I'm 175. Make sure you're not.
And you ain't been 175 since high school.
No. Yeah. 250? It's about 250, Richard.
Okay. Hinges are completely wrong for this.
The what?
Hinges are completely incorrect to use on a door of that height, of that weight. So the proper hinge to use would be a pivot, but you're not going to get to really much past 90 degrees. Now, having said that, you could use the hinge that I've got. It'll swing the door, but it's not the right thing to use because it's not thick enough and it's not the proper construction of hinge. You could special order a heavyweight 5-inch tall hinge that I don't think they may do 7-inch wide, but they're going to be non-stock is the bottom line. So
okay, if I do the 4.5 by 7 that you do have in stock, what's going to happen? It'll just start sagging over time, or?
I expect that it would.
Okay, sorry.
I expect
now
over time it would.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to have a problem necessarily day one, and it looks to be residential, so the volume will be low on the door, but it's the incorrect hinge. You should have this hinge is 134 thousandths leaf thickness. I would recommend 180 thousandths, a thicker hinge, and I would go with the tallest hinge possible as well. But you're going to spend a lot more money, and it's going to take 3 weeks for sure.
Okay, you know what? Sorry, now they're listing someone else to compare the weight. They're saying it's pushing 275. What do you think it weighs? 275?
No, I'm weighing 270.
Okay.
So the door I think is more than
Oh boy.
Yeah, they're saying somewhere between 270 and 290 because one of the guys here actually weighs 275, and they're like it weighs probably as much as he does because they're listing him and then listing the door because I don't have it. Okay. Yeah. If I were to do a pivot hinge, how would it work on it? Can you do a pivot on a door that's in an arch? Because that's another issue I have. When the door opens, you know, when you've got a deep casing and it's on an arch, those 2 points come and hit together, like where the radius of the arch is.
Is this a pair of doors?
No, it's one single door.
Okay. Yeah, with a pivot, you're not going to go much past 90 degrees.
We're not going to go past the 90 anyways. Okay.
Because you can't move the vertical axis of pivoting out like you can with a wide throw hinge.
Okay, and if I do a pivot, I need some type of mechanism in the ground, a pivot, and then what is it connected to up top or on the?
So you could do an 1.5-inch offset pivot, and that will get you probably. I would really have to put it in AutoCAD to know exactly the degree of opening, but you'd probably get a little bit past 90. So what happens when you have an arch? You use a bottom pivot only, and then you use intermediate pivots, and those intermediate pivots help carry the weight. The problem with going with an 1.5-inch offset versus the standard 3/4 offset is they do not make load-bearing versions. They make intermediate pivots that are intended to carry the weight. That's what you would want because of the weight of the door. So 2 load-bearing intermediate pivots, 1 floor pivot, 1 bottom pivot. You can mount it to the floor or to the jamb, and then it would be 3/4 offset, which means the vertical axis of pivoting is 3/4 of an inch from the face of the door. So you're really not going to get the door open much. You'll get to 90 for sure and a little past, but not much.
Okay. What would you do if this was your home?
So what I would do is, if I would probably special order, if it was me, I would order pivots because over time, it being my home, I'm going to own that problem in a decade when the hinges,
Okay.
when the door is sagging, because it's going to happen. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. That's what I would do.
And opening the door 90 is plenty, to be honest with you, for this entry door, because the entry is small, so that makes a difference or not. But 90 is more than enough. But yeah, if it opened more than 90, would be great, but 90 is enough. Okay, so you recommend, okay. And then just to get this door, if I wanted to buy the pivots, is that something that you have in stock, or that's also have a lead time?
No, I stock the pivots that we've discussed.
Okay. And do any of the pivots have to get, are they like floor mounted, where it's like a bottom, like a floor mounted door closer where it's got some mechanism in the ground and then you've got the pivot coming through it, or it's not that invasive?
It's not, you're not going to do anything to the floor except drill into it for fasteners. Or you can take those fasteners and mortise them to the jamb. It'll still sit on the floor, but you can screw it to the frame. So you can screw it to the floor or to the jamb. If it was my home, it would go to the jamb because I wouldn't want to pierce into the floor.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So it's basically like, okay, I think I get the idea. Can I ask you to send me a picture of what it is and what the cost would be for this door, so I can go ahead and just, because from your YouTube, I can tell that you know plenty about hinges and things like this, so I trust your judgment. So just let me know what it is. If there's any other measurement you need, Richard, please let me know. While I have you on the phone, in the same home, we have one door that's for the butler's pantry. So the jamb has no door stop on it. It'll just be a free swinging door, left to right, that will hold in the center, but it'll swing back with tension. Do you have something for that as well, that I don't need to drill anything into the finished floor, or?
Yeah, I'd like to see a photograph of that door, but you can reply to the email when I send it to you.
Okay. The door's not installed. It's just, imagine like an opening with a door jamb, but no door stop. So meaning the door just sits in the middle. It sort of becomes like a door like at a restaurant where you can go two ways in it, and it just kind of holds in the center. I don't know, like how they used to do in the old days. I'll send you a picture of the jamb now.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd like to see it, and then a description of it. And I'll send you an email shortly with the pivots that I would use and the cost. What color do you want?
Black.
Okay, I understand. I'll send you an email shortly. Oh, what is your email?
I will text that to you now as well.
Okay, very good.
Where are you? Are you East Coast, so I have an idea of your timing?
Yes, I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Okay. I just sent you my email address. Okay, so the pivots that you're going to send to me is what you recommend. So that's what I should just, and then can you give me the price as well, so I can hopefully get this order?
Yes, sir. A cut sheet and a cost.
Okay, perfect. And again, this will be okay for all the weight and all the issues and everything that we have for this store.
I will send you an email shortly.
Okay, thank you. I'll send you a diagram for that swing door as well, so you can see it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program.
¿Vas a abrir mañana, Feliz?
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, this portion of the video is to put the cleanup on what happened with that conversation and how it all evolved. You're going to see an image of the completed project, and even I think a short video as well. What happened was this. So the conversation, as you heard, what can the client use for hinges? Initially, the client was thinking wide throw hinges. Sure, that's great. It will work. What you would have seen somewhere probably was photographs of the Tectus hinges that were installed, whether it be Tectus, McKinney, Sauce, Sugatsuni. There's somebody else I think that makes them. There's a golden rule with all of those concealed hinges, and that is what Sauce would call the E dimension, which means where you mortise the hinge in the door and frame cannot exceed the E dimension, which is measured from the face of the door or the face of the jamb to where that prep starts on the pull side. If you go larger than that, then what happens is the door, when it tries to open, is going to automatically hit that outside corner. When you don't violate the E dimension, it will rotate around that really nice, okay, so that it doesn't make any contact. But when you set them too far in, or you set the door too far in, it'll hit. And the client had the door and frame prepped for the Tectus, went to install it and said, okay, I can get it open about 10 degrees or whatever it was, 25 degrees. The client did call, as you may have heard, with the wide throw concept. And the concept was, well, I want to be able to open the door to like at least 90 degrees so it functions. Great. The client said that his door was 300 plus pounds or 290 pounds, and you would have heard all of that. He said at the very end it was 350 pounds, in fact. And that's not going to work for wide throw hinges. I mean, will it work if you used 5 of them that are all heavy duty and they were 5-inch or 6-inch and they were 5 or 6-inch wide? They will swing the door, but it's not the best hardware to use. The best hardware to use with anything of substantial weight, of course, is a pivot, because you set the weight of that door down on the hardware, which is on the earth. So the earth is bearing the weight of all of that. Okay, so what we got to was discussing load bearing a floor pivot, a 147 floor pivot, which I think is rated for 500 pounds. And because that door is an arch top, we don't have the ability to add a hinge up at the top of the door, and it's at the top of the door. The top hinge, in fact, carries 70% of the weight of the door. As you go further down the door, each hinge is doing less work. So it's the wrong application for hinges, patently the wrong application, and for wide throw, because the real wide hinge with that vertical axis of pivoting way out here is not meant to carry a load. And in fact, wide throw hinges or swing clear hinges or raised barrel hinges, these are products that really aren't load rated. So wide throw hinges, it would work, but it would not be right. We would be throwing a lot more hardware at it than it really needs. That pivot becomes incredibly elegant. The 147, 500 pounds. What I like to do when we have arch top is I like to use, obviously intermediate pivots will be required, but load bearing intermediate pivots. So we did 2 of those on this door because it's just an average height. And you'll see that photograph. The question, since we determined we were doing offset pivots, we knew what classification we were using based on the weight, like a Rixson 147. It could have been an ABH 0147. It could have been, well, actually, I don't know if it could have been ABH because I wanted a particular offset and load bearing on the intermediates. You could have used other pivots for this, but we went with Rixson because I knew they had the intermediates that were load bearing 1.5 inches, plus they were in stock. And the guy, the client wants to hang the door now, tomorrow, now, yesterday. So what ends up happening, what gets tricky when you look at those pictures, be mindful of the arch top. Well, the arch top is really cool, but be mindful of where the door, this 1.75 or 2.5 inch thick, whatever thickness of the door is, I forget, I think it's 2.5 or 2.25, where that door thickness is in relation to the wall thickness. Where is the jamb set in the wall? You'll notice that the jamb is biased towards the outside, and that obviously the top is arched, but he's swinging it in. And what happens is you've got an arch top door, but then you've got an arch above there. So what happens is, or no, I don't believe there's an arch above there. That's a different project. You've got let's say a 12-inch thick arched header that the 6-inch frame sits inside of, and it's biased towards the outside. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine that door opening. Well, what happens is you've got an arched profile to the door. Just imagine this is arched. As the door opens, this part of the door is going to hit the arch of the wall. It's going to make contact with the arch point. So the way that we compensated for that was to increase the offset of the pivot to 1.5 inches versus the typical 3/4 inch. You've got center hung and offset pivots. All that means is, where is the vertical axis of pivoting in relationship to the door? A center hung is that the vertical axis of pivoting goes down through the center of the thickness of the door. Offset is when you look at the face of the door on the pull side. It's either 3/4 inch or 1.5 inches measured from the face of the door to the vertical axis of pivoting. So what we were doing is, the 3/4 inch, the client realized, was not far enough out of a vertical axis of pivoting so that the door would clear the arch. And what I had him do was put the door in place. He used a hinge as a prop, measured 1.5 inches from the face of the jamb, let's say, to the vertical axis of that hinge barrel, and he was able to determine by placing the door that it would clear the arch, the 12-inch deep arch, and do so in such a way that he'd get 120 degree out of it. And he says, will it work? I said, absolutely it'll work. Sure, absolutely it will work. We know it will work because you've positioned the door where it would need to clear. You've positioned the door 1.5 inches from the face of the frame to the vertical axis of pivoting, and you've used that hinge as your prop to make sure that it was in position. And the client did a reality check on that, ordered the hardware, and early this morning or late last night sent me a video and sent me a photograph, and he said, and I quote, "This door swings smoother than a cabinet door." And what does that mean? It means we've got a 350-pound door, not only hung on the right hardware, meaning a pivot that can carry the weight, plus a very sizable safety margin, but those intermediate pivots, they're meant to carry the weight. So all of that door is hanging on hardware that's intended to not only keep the door from bowing and keeping it in the frame, but it's meant to lift it and hold it and operate it. It's also a testament, in my opinion, to the quality of the person who did the work. I don't know who installed the material, but if it was installed wrong, it wouldn't work smoother than a 8-pound cabinet door, or a 20-pound cabinet door, is the bottom line. So that's what this whole video is about. If you have any questions on the application of offset pivots, especially those that have these finicky arches, and I did a job last year where there was an 2 8-foot wide openings, 2-foot fixed panels, 2-foot doors, arched top, but then there was the arch of the frame, and then that sat inside of a larger arch. And the gentleman doing the job, he's an architect, he's an engineer, and he's saying, I'm not going to get the doors open as far as I need to get them to 180 degree, that kind of stuff. And you have to be mindful of how you're swinging that material. And what he had to end up doing was swinging those inner panels to the exterior. Actually, what it was, here's what it was. You've got 4 panels. I think it was 3 foot, 3 foot, 2 foot, 2 foot maybe. And he wanted to swing those inner panels out. No, they were all equal leaves. So maybe they were all 2 foot, or 2 foot 6 maybe. Swing the inner panels out. So what we did was we swung the inner panels out. We used flush bolts to hold the outer panels in place. He could throw those, take the inner panel, swing it 180 degrees back on that door, and then take that outer panel and fold that up perpendicular to the adjacent wall. Was able to stack those doors out really nice so that it all worked really well for the application. Is what happened there. So those arches can get pesky. There's something that you have to look at. And if you're trying to hang something and it doesn't seem right, it probably isn't right. And it's always going to boil down to, in my experience, where is that vertical axis of pivoting? That's where the trouble starts. And back to the original problem, the Tectus hinge or the Sauce or the Sugatsuni or the McKinney hinge, they have that vertical axis of pivoting is in the center of it all. And as you open the door, that vertical axis of pivoting floats, it moves, but it will not tolerate that violation of the E dimension. Exacerbating was the arch, plus the fact that the whole frame was biased towards the outside. That door was never going to swing very far open. That should have been caught by the person doing the door work. The person who made the door and frame should have looked at the wall section to see what it was going into. What am I attaching it to, or what is someone going to attach it to? That was the problem. Or swinging the door out. That could have solved the problem. Probably not, but it could have. Any questions on this application, please feel free to reach out to us. My name is Rich Howard. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.